Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this week's Team Kentucky Update. This week on the economic development front, I had the opportunity to join leaders from Wild Brands for a flag-raising ceremony at their brand new Winchester facility. Wild Brands was founded in 2017, and the company produces high-protein, low-carb snack chips made from all-natural chicken breast, egg whites, and bone broth. Wild Brands initially announced plans in September of 2020 for a $9.78 million 50-job production and distribution facility in Clark County. Over the last 2 years, they have been incredibly successful, and Wild Brands has more than doubled in size and an amount of equipment. Because of the rapid growth, the company now employs 100 workers and plans to hire 50 more. That's 150 more Kentuckians with the dignity and security of a good job. That's why we've been laser focused on bringing in more jobs every week. It provides security for our families and communities, and it provides more opportunities for our children. I want to thank Wild Brands CEO Jason Wright for continuing to expand the company's presence here in the Commonwealth. I want to thank the Tierneys who helped develop this incredible facility that we had this event in. Really exciting to see a company that has committed to Kentucky growing so quickly. In other good news, general fund returns for January. At the end of last week, we received really great news for our state's red-hot economy. Total revenues for January were $1.2 billion, making it the best January in terms of state revenue in our history. The strength of our economy is shown by having the best ever January, despite our income tax having dropped 10% for that month. Employment growth have led to even higher withholdings. That's just the portion related to the income tax was higher in January 2023 than in January of 2022. Despite the reduction in that income tax, showing you just how strong Kentucky's economy was, certainly in January. January sales tax collections were $553.2 million. That is an all-time high monthly record for any month in our history. And they're 7% higher than the previous monthly high. The news comes on the heel of our best 2 years of economic development the state has ever seen, when we've broken every record on the books, and it hadn't even been close. 2021, our best year. We brought in $11.2 billion in new private sector investment and won a record 18,000 plus new jobs for Kentuckians. 2022, our second best year ever, $10.5 billion in new investment, 16,000 new full-time jobs. I mean, since I took office, we've announced more than 800 private sector new location and expansion projects totaling $24 billion in new private sector investment. And the best part, the creation of 43,000 new Kentucky jobs. That's 43,000 more Kentuckians who've earned the dignity and respect that comes with a great paying job. We've also secured the second and third best years for new wages, and we've posted Kentucky's lowest unemployment rate multiple times, along with our longest consecutive streak of sub 3.9% unemployment. That was last year. We're in the midst of what will be our 4 largest budget surpluses in the Commonwealth's history, and we have the largest rainy day fund we've ever had. We are in one of the best economic rolls that Kentucky has ever seen. January in terms of revenue and in terms of economic development, I think it was our second best January ever. Show that the great momentum from 2021 and 2022 is continuing here into 2023. I'm also announcing that we're about to take another giant step forward on the long-awaited Brent Spence Bridge Corridor project in Northern Kentucky. Just last month, I joined President Biden, Senator Mitch McConnell, Ohio Governor Mike DeWine, and others for the announcement of federal funding in the amount of $1.6 billion for the Brent Spence Bridge, what we believe to be the largest infrastructure grant in U.S. history. And it was Kentucky and Ohio that earned it. That grant is the boost we needed to get this bi-state, bipartisan, and nationally significant infrastructure project finally off the drawing boards. And so I can tell you that I think it's early next week that we will be issuing a request for proposal, or RFP. That is a major first step that is essentially an invitation to engineering and construction companies to come forward and to compete on who is going to help us design and build this transformational project. I will tell you there will be multiple RFPs that come out over time, but a first major RFP post that funding is another step that shows that it's going to happen. We are going to get this project done. We're going to do it without tolls. What people have been talking about for decades, we are delivering on, and we are moving fast. The RFP is coming out just 1 month after we learned of the funding. We've been preparing so we can move at the most rapid speed possible and do it well, not only for the people of Ohio and Kentucky, but all of America that depends on this bridge. It's going to bring good construction jobs that ultimately boost the economy. This is going to change the lives of those who work on it for the better. It's going to be really incredible for the region, for our state, and for our neighbors across the Ohio River. Now, let's talk about weather real quick. Severe weather is moving across the Commonwealth today and is expected to continue through this evening. This morning, we experienced heavy rain and thunderstorms, and this afternoon, we are expecting to get damaging winds ahead of a cold front. There is a possibility of hail, and there is a possibility of tornadoes. Folks in southeastern Kentucky continue to be under a flood watch. So we are closely working with the National Weather Service and Kentucky Emergency Management for the most up-to-date information. We'll continue to share it as available primarily through our social media. Please stay alert. Please listen to your local weather forecast. Please check social media. Don't get out on the roads when it's not safe. So be weather aware. Most of the loss that we experience during some of these events is avoidable. After everything we've been through, let's make sure that we listen to the weather forecasts and that we are safe and make sure our families are safe. All right, quick update on Eastern Kentucky flooding. So far, the total FEMA dollars now $98 million. It's actually closer to $99 million. But what we announce each week so that people will continue to pursue their FEMA claims is the amount, the new amount from that week. This week, it's $678,000. That's been what we've been seeing week in and week out. So since February 8th, an additional 7 applicants have received the maximum grant, bringing the total housing assistance grants to $24.1 million. If you need help, please call FEMA directly or visit one of our multi-agency resource centers. People are getting their claims through. They're getting maximum amounts. I know it's taken far too long and the process is way too difficult, but other folks out there are getting through it, and they're getting through it with help from these centers. Now, this is important. We have kept these marks, these multi-agency resource centers open long after anyone else ever has after one of these disasters. And that's because we want to help people get through this process. But what we do need to do is go to a rotating schedule so that we can have the staff for them. This is going to consist of 2 on-site personnel and 1 remote support person as needed. The staff will rotate from county to county each day. So we will be putting out a new schedule in the coming days to say when the in-person help will be in each county. It's beginning February the 20th. So we'll ensure that we get that schedule out there. I will say most of the people receiving these maximum awards week to week are working directly with one of these resource centers and are going in and seeing them face to face. You can go locations which are up here are also found at governor.ky.gov/flood resources. Commonwealth Sheltering Program. Remember, we hit the point last week or the week before where we now have 0 pending families to enter into this program. So that's a very good thing. 165 have transitioned out. This shows where we are. A whole lot of work to be done on permanent housing. A whole lot of work to be done. But this is overall a good sign. So 222 households in travel trailers. They are in 227 of the travel trailers, 10 commercial locations, 9 trailers on site at private locations. 20 people left in our state parks. That's down from 360 at our height. and safe funds. Today, I'm happy to announce 3 new awards from the Eastern Kentucky Safe Fund totaling $6.5 million. Remember, this looks like a big pool of money, and it takes time for the applications to come in. But we believe we have over $1 billion of damage just in water and wastewater. So significant resources are going to be needed in what is, I believe, the toughest rebuild the country has ever seen. Safe Fund Awards today. Jackson Energy Cooperative, $18,326 to fund a FEMA match. Letcher County Fiscal Court, $400,000 to help ease the financial strain of a FEMA ineligible reimbursement. The Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, about $6 million, again, to fund a FEMA match. Team Eastern Kentucky Flood Relief Fund, 41,500 donations, 13.1 million raised. Directly dispersed already 4.4 million. Those are 440,000 in funeral expenses, and over $4 million in $500 checks to survivors approved for any amount of FEMA assistance. We've also pledged $800,000 that's going out right now in terms of repairs and new houses that are ready to go up. We are reserving the rest of those funds for either additional housing that can go up now or in the short term, but very importantly for these high ground properties that we are securing, we are developing, and we will be running the infrastructure too. I want to talk today about a program through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act that is helping us to plug orphan wells. These are abandoned wells that are emitting methane, which is now shown to be possibly the worst emission that impacts global warming and climate change. So through our Better Kentucky plan, we are using $25 million in grant funds through the bipartisan infrastructure law to plug orphan wells across the state. And there's potential for it to reach $79 million. Here's the neat thing. We're doing this better and far better than any other state, and it is not close. So I believe only 3 or 4 states have started whatsoever. Kentucky has now plugged 354 wells in 14 counties. That's Cumberland, Christian, Davis, Henderson, Lee, McLean, Ohio, Pulaski, Webster, Estill, Lawrence, Powell, Warren, and Union. 42 contracts have been signed to plug a total of 638 wells. Oh, here it is. 7 total states have been plugging, and we are the top by hundreds. The well capping has created 90 new jobs, and we think it's going to create about 30 more. So I want to thank the Energy and Environment Cabinet, along with the Oil and Gas Association. They began working on this long before we got the final guidance, before the money came out. We were ready to go. We are doing this better than any state in the country, and it's the public and the private sector working together in a very special way. Team Kentucky update. Flu continuing to decline, but in many years, flu has a second surge. So everybody needs to take precautions. You can still get your flu shot. You should get your flu shot. The flu shot is pretty well tailored to the flu this year. COVID-19 remains pretty stable in Kentucky. We continue to recommend getting the new booster. It will help. It has been working, but not many people have gotten it. Remember, the national emergency will be expiring on May 11th. That may mean that there are more or additional charges to what you're used to, and different things like tests and treatments that people have been using to battle COVID-19. We expect more money. We expect more information. We don't expect any more money on the COVID front. We expect more information on the full impacts of ending the emergency soon. One, which we flagged earlier, and I'll have more information on soon, is a pandemic Medicaid unwind, whereby we're going to have to take about 240 to 280,000 Kentuckians and transition from that easy to sign up pandemic Medicaid into regular Medicaid, Medicare, or private plans on Connect. And our team, Kentucky All-Star, because we're really moving today, is Chris Stapleton. Now, Super Bowl is always fun to watch, but this year's game was even more special thanks to one of Kentucky's own. Chris Stapleton moved the entire country with his performance of the national anthem before the game. He is a dedicated Kentuckian, showing his love for his home of Eastern Kentucky in everything he does. From his music to his on-site support of his neighbors after July's devastating flooding, Chris is always representing our Commonwealth in the best way. That's why this week I'm proud to name Chris Stapleton as our Team Kentucky All-Star. Chris, thanks for making us all so proud. We've got 3 journalists here today, so instead of doing the normal 1 question, we're happy to answer 2 from everybody. We'll start with Tom Latek.
Thank you, Governor. And my first, are you going to bounce back and forth?
Sure.
Okay. My first one, House Bill 1, I asked you about that about a week ago. You said you hadn't really taken a look at it yet. The 10 days will be coming up pretty soon. Have you decided whether or not you're going to sign it or veto it?
We are still reviewing House Bill 1. Expect to have a decision soon. Joe?
The Supreme Court came out with an opinion today on the abortion bans, that they will stay in place for the time being, and the 6-week ban will go back to Jefferson Circuit on a standing issue. Just checking to see what your reaction is to those rulings and the ban staying in effect.
We have one of the most restrictive, draconian trigger laws in the country that eliminate options even for victims of rape, victims of incest, and those parents who tragically learn that there are fetal abnormalities that will prevent their baby from surviving, but still are going to have to carry it to term if the life of the mother is not at risk. Now, I know that there had been, I guess, some conversation about what was or what was not in the law and whether guidance could clarify it. But the Supreme Court, in addition to the rulings that you talked about, was very clear about what is prohibited and the fact that there are no exceptions under the trigger law. Supreme Court said neither the trigger ban nor the heartbeat ban contains an exception for rape, incest, or severe fetal abnormalities. That's them speaking. That's the law. And what this means is people victimized through no fault of their own or going through the worst outcome that prospective parents could have no options. I think it's wrong. I think there need to be changes made to it. And the Supreme Court recognized exactly what it is, one of the most restrictive, draconian trigger laws in the country. Austin?
Yeah, I'm wondering if you could just elaborate a little more on your interpretation of the opinion. Obviously, It's really long. So
it is very long.
I expect you to have read every word of it. But is your take that they're punting on this issue, or is this a step in the wrong direction?
Go ahead. From the, I guess you would call it the majority opinion, but it's there's a lot of concurring opinions. This ruling came down to standing. Can you bring a lawsuit, and on whose behalf can you bring it? Ultimately, the court did not rule on the overall constitutionality of either of the laws at issue. What it said is the groups that had brought the lawsuit can only continue the lawsuit on one of the laws, and that someone else would have to bring it on another. But what they did do is say that there would not be an injunction in place during the pendency of the continued action on at least one law, meaning the trigger law is Kentucky's law, meaning victims of rape and incest have fewer rights than their rapist.
The other question I had was if your opinions on gray machines have been updated at all in the past couple weeks as legislation has started to move forward.
I'm closely monitoring legislation on gray machines. They are the only form of unregulated gaming in Kentucky. So I'm closely watching what the General Assembly is doing, and certainly the FOP ending its relationship with gray machines speaks volumes. Tom?
Governor, the Brent Spence that you spoke about, now that the RFPs are going out, do we have a timeline on when people can actually be driving on pavement here, or an estimate within a year or two of that?
Oh, let me get that to you. No, this bridge is going to take, I think it's 6 to 8 years. in total to do, but let us get you the direct current estimate of it. Our goal is to get it under construction faster by being prepared, which certainly shaves off time on the back end. And I will say the Louisville bridges were completed ahead of schedule. So, Joe?
House Bill 3, juvenile justice bill, may pass the House soon. It gives about $9 million to reopen the youth detention facility in Jefferson County and have the state operate that, and also makes some changes to mandatory holds, opening up records of some who's convicted or pleading guilty to violent crimes. Have you had a chance to look at that bill, and do you think it is a bill that you could support, or when will you think?
So thus far, the only part of House Bill 3 I've had a chance to review is what it would do for a Louisville detention center. And we do need to design and open a Louisville detention center. I think we ought to be very thoughtful about how it and Linden could work together. I keep hearing some people say, well, if you design it correctly, you could house boys and girls in the same facility. Adair was our safest facility in terms of how it is constructed. I don't think we ever ought to house boys and girls together. Linden certainly gives us an option there if we're trying to keep as many of the Louisville juveniles in the area. Gang activity is another concern if you're all in the same facility, as opposed to having flexibility within the system. But what HB 3 does not do is what's necessary to resolve the current state of pre-adjudication detention centers. We were asked by the General Assembly saying, we want to fix this because the executive branch wants to fix this. What would it take? And we told them, without additional dollars appropriated to us, we can't hire the staff for it to be a safe environment in each of these facilities. The facilities are 20 to 30 years old and weren't meant with the physical security to house and deal with the situations we are dealing with right now. That takes more dollars. Here's my concern. In 2016, we lost a juvenile in Elizabethtown. And what happened? They fired a DJJ commissioner. They did a study that said you need to do these things, and then nothing else happened. Now, I'm not running from this problem. I'm running towards it. And we want to make sure that we are able to resolve the issues that are there. And that's going to take investment in a system that's seen very little investment in the past 20 plus years. The General Assembly's already reopened the budget. I signed House Bill 2 dealing with the veterans nursing home that we needed to fund. That opened the budget. Depending on what happens with House Bill 1, it will reopen the budget. If you change revenue, that's changing the budget. And House Bill 3 with the appropriation for the Louisville facility reopens the budget as well. So now the budget's being reopened. It is being reopened. It already has been. We know we're going to have about $2 billion more in revenue than we have in current expenses under the budget. These dollars are there. They need to be appropriated if the legislature is going to do its part in addressing these challenges. All right. Thank you all very much. We'll see you next week.